Planning a trip to Japan can be incredibly overwhelming. In this travel series, I'd like to share with you my experiences of living and traveling in Japan, so that hopefully you can make much easier decisions when it comes to booking your trip to Japan. All right, first I want to start talking about the Airbnbs. I want to discuss some of the pros and the cons that I've experienced, the quirky things that you might want to expect at an Airbnb in Japan, and also the 3 different types that I've noticed. There's a totally different vibe when you stay at an Airbnb versus a hotel, mostly because when you're at a hotel, they're always going to remind you that you are a visitor and you're a tourist. But when you're in an Airbnb, you're kind of in this little neighborhood, you feel a little bit like you're part of the community, and it gives you a different experience of Japan. This is something that I personally really enjoy, being able to go to the grocery store and wander around being like, what is all this stuff? And knowing that I can take it back to my apartment and cook something, being able to cook comfort food if I've been on the road for a bit and it's like 5 days in, you don't want Japanese food. Well, don't worry, you can eat something at your Airbnb that will comfort you. I love being able to get to know the local konbinis and like the local coffee shops. And I noticed that if I kept going to the same shop over and over again, you kind of get a little bit of a recognition like, oh, you know, you're back again. And that really made me feel like, could I live here? Do I live here now? So it really gives you this feeling of like, I could live or I am living in Japan. It's a whole different vacation vibe. So out of all the Airbnbs that I stayed at, I've noticed that there are kind of 3 different types. This is not official. This is not the official Airbnb guide to Airbnbs, but it's like the Martina opinion guide to the 3 kinds of Airbnbs I've seen. The first kind was a very basic apartment. And what I mean by that was there wasn't any decoration or a feeling of somebody else has lived there and I'm using their apartment. These are places that I think are made for people to stay at as visitors. It has all the essentials. It's got, you know, beds and pillows and extra blankets, rice cookers, washing machines, you know, they'll provide the liquid for it. You've got shampoo and conditioner. So it's not like the place is empty, but it certainly doesn't have any vibe to it. For some people, they're like, yeah, I don't care. It's still a Japanese apartment. It's got everything you need functionality-wise. These basic apartments feel like places that have hosted a lot of foreign visitors, and so they're kind of comfortable with the ins and outs and the questions people might have. But again, it's a place to sleep and stay and maybe do some cooking, but not really a place to be like, wow, I'm vibing in this apartment. Now, outside of those basic apartments, there are plenty of really cool modern Airbnbs for you to rent. The apartments that I've been to, from Osaka to Kyoto, all over Tokyo, different prefectures around Tokyo, they've been so cool and modern. They have, you know, Netflix, they have YouTube, they have game systems sometimes. And one of the things I like about the more modern apartments is they tend to have little extra things for you like wine openers or a beer opener, which you don't really think about when you're traveling, right? But if you buy a bottle of wine and take it back and you're like, oh shoot, I can't open this. And you start Googling, like, how do I open wine without a wine opener? These places will kind of have all those things for you. And the pantry tends to have stuff in it like, you know, sugar, maybe honey. They might have some tea bags for you, oil for cooking, shoyu, like soy sauce. So they have like a bunch of basics that are all ready for you there. So it's kind of nice to just like jump on in. My most common experience is a clean apartment that is made for Airbnb rental, modern, cool, you know, chic, but it doesn't have that personal feeling of somebody who lives there. In my personal experience, renting an apartment in Japan is good for 1 to 4 people. I'd say once you hit the 5, 6 range, you're looking at people sleeping on like the pull-out couch, and you have to keep in mind how compact the spaces are. So it's not like a giant living room that they can stay in. So I really think 4 people is max. If you want to rent a place that has 5, 6, 7, or like, you know, 2 families coming together, then I have another suggestion for you. You can rent an entire house on Airbnb. Now, I've done this a couple times, especially in Kyoto when we're shooting stuff for work. The Kyoto house scene is so cool because it has that kind of traditional Kyoto style home. It still has like feeling and vibe to it. You have a full kitchen area, you might have a second level. So it's really good for groups of people to sleep in. So they will have, like you can see it, that they'll have beds that you can sleep in, but some places will say we can fit 16 people, and then you find out that it's tatami. So tatami is a kind of grass ground, and the room itself is a bit soft to step on. It's not like squishy soft, but it has a bounce to it. It's not like sleeping on the floor. And a tatami room will have these futons that you roll out. They're usually about like this thick, and I find futons quite comfortable, and I have a really hard time sleeping on hard beds. And I usually just double up my futon and I'm good. And I sleep like a baby on futons. And sometimes it smells like this kind of sweet grass smell. Now, if you're looking to go to the beach areas in Japan, I have had some amazing experiences booking Airbnbs around the beach zone. So I went to Shimoda with a bunch of friends, and like all the places there kind of like, they know that people come there for vacation, not just foreigners, like Japanese people do. So you get like this entire house, and you know, they have like pool tables and like a barbecue area, and like it's just a really fun space, and there's individual rooms for people to sleep in, and like lots of space. Like it's probably the biggest house I've ever seen because it's in the countryside, but they have like, you know, suggestions for surfing or, you know, what you can do nearby in the small towns, and they are so much fun to stay in. Now for some practical pros about staying at an Airbnb, I have never been to an Airbnb that did not provide me with a manual. So they always have a manual to talk about the items in the house. Some of them might go as so far as to like sticker things for you, so you don't necessarily feel completely confused. And I really like the local touches where they'll say, this is our neighborhood, these are our favorite spots. They have places now where they'll give you like Google Map links just in the app itself. And so you kind of arrive and almost feel like you have a couple places that you can explore. And normally the hosts are quite good. They usually speak English, and you can message them back and forth, and they'll tell you like, oh, you can go here or you can go there. So it almost feels like you're on the pulse of being able to get a hold of somebody who knows this neighborhood really well. Next up, not all Airbnbs are accessible with elevators. Even if your apartment is on like the 5th floor, the older apartments might not have elevator access. So you're gonna wanna ask your host in advance if there is elevator access. Even if they have an elevator, some places might have very small elevators. So keep that in mind if maybe you have a wheelchair and you have to fit a certain size. Just ask these questions in advance. Do not assume that every place has an elevator, even if it's like the 6th or 7th floor. Another huge but small problem is that if you're booking an Airbnb downtown in the core, so I'm talking like Shibuya, Shinjuku, Roppongi, Ebisu, Ikebukuro, these places to you might be like, oh, I want to stay in these locations. The apartments can be insanely small. Have I got a story for you? Oh, I've got a story for you. I once booked an Airbnb thinking that it was like such a good location. It was like right in the core. It was an amazing price. And when I arrived at this Airbnb, it was like so small. And the way they had taken the photos was with a mega wide lens. So the room looked quite large in the photos, but when I got there, the bed was underneath a desk. So you had to fold the desk down to use the desk on top of the bed. Then you had to fold the desk back up in order to use the bed. The bathtub was like, yeah, they had a bathtub, but it was like a deep soak tub that looked like you were like climbing into a garbage can. It was so deep. Nothing was dirty. Nothing was like, you know, oh my God, this place is filthy. No, there was nothing wrong with it, but I couldn't fit my luggage and me in this place. Oh, no. And then I realized there's kind of like a secret hint that we can all use when booking a place like this. When I saw the photos of the kitchen, they had a sink and they had a stove and they had like pots and pans and stuff. And I was like, oh, they've even got a kitchen, which by the way, was literally like you open up the door and it's like, you're in the kitchen. And then you can like see the bed. It was so small. The kitchen only had one hub, like the stove. If you see a place with a one hub apartment oven and then the sink, that's usually a very small place. I'm not saying that that's the case 100% of the time, but I don't think a lot of apartments in Japan that have one hub are big. If you see 2 hubs in a place, okay. If you see 3 hubs in a place, it's definitely a big place. So keep your eye out for booking places with 1 hub. If you're traveling with 2 people and you've got luggage, this place is not gonna be for you. Now, some of the things that I found that were like a con to stay at the Airbnb, and again, this just depends on the kind of person you are. You want to be careful for booking places that might be located near a highway or right near the roadway. No matter where you are in Tokyo, it tends to be pretty active when it comes to like cars and people, and the noise can be a huge problem. Once I stayed in a neighborhood that was like not in the downtown core, and this place was like really well priced, and I was like awesome, and I was on a high floor, and I was right on a main highway, and it started to get noisy at like 4 in the morning, and there wasn't like honking or anything, but I'm a very sensitive light sleeper. Just the sound of like it completely woke me up. I also booked an Airbnb in Nagoya, and it was right on the same level as the train tracks, and that was really noisy. So every, 5 to 10 minutes, you'd hear like da-dung, 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 or like of like the brakes and stuff. So that was probably the worst experience I had when it came to noise. The hosts actually knew that in advance, and they told people that they provided them with earplugs, which I thought was pretty cool. They had like a jar of like, sealed up earplugs. For some of you, this may not be a problem at all. Like you might hit the bed and be like nothing wakes you up. But for me, I hear a noise and I'm like a puppy. I'm like, what's that? What was that? So please keep that in mind when you're booking your Airbnbs. Feel free to reach out to your host and ask them how close they are to a highway or a subway station before you book. Another thing to keep in mind is that you might have to walk to the train station. If you have an Airbnb that you're staying at, it doesn't mean that it's located in like the best place. Some of them can be quite far away. I've seen some that are like 20 minutes away walking from a subway station. You might be in like a really cool neighborhood, but it still may not be very accessible to something like the train. So you're gonna wanna look on the map and see how close you are walking distance. It's also a good thing to ask your host if there's any hills. Japan can be insanely hilly. Even in downtown Tokyo, there can be crazy hills that come out of nowhere, and then some places that are super flat. So if you need to use, any kind of mobility aid, or you can't walk very long distances, or you're not interested in kind of exploring the country area around you, you kind of have plans for things that you want to see, and you need to hop on a train quickly, those locations may not be for you. Now on to some things that might surprise you. Noise level alarms in Airbnbs. What the heck are those, Martina? All right. If you live in Japan and you rent an apartment, being conscientious of your neighbors is a huge thing. Like some people can't even like walk around a certain way without their neighbor being like, you're too noisy. So there's a lot of sensitivity about noise in apartments. Because of this, Airbnbs I've been to as of lately, like in the past couple years, have installed these noise alarms. They're just like these little boxes that are in a certain area, and in the manual, they'll explain to you that if you go above a certain decibel, as in you've turned up the TV really loud or you've cranked up your own Bluetooth music, the alarm will go off to let you know that you're being too noisy. It's not like attached to anything. It's not like the noise police show up like kicking the door and they're like, you're too noisy, turn off your metal. It's not like that. It's just that there's an alarm that will go off. If I had not known that and there was an alarm going off, I probably would have been pretty freaked out. Noise alarms, they're a thing. Now on to recycling in Japan, something that can surprise a lot of people visiting from other countries. Japan is so into recycling, and they have very specific ways that you have to recycle things. Not every Airbnb is into this. They kind of know that they're gonna have to sort it later. So I've been to some Airbnbs that say, separate your plastic and your garbage, like, food waste and stuff, and then they've hired somebody to do the rest. But I've been to also many Airbnbs that are like, plastic bottles go in here, the caps go in here, cans go in here. These cans need to have the labels removed. You need to put burnables in this bag. And I was like, what's a burnable? When I was first visiting Japan, I'm like, isn't everything technically burnable? I've never heard of a situation where later on someone's like, how dare you not recycle this properly? We went through your trash and we found a bottle. Like, they're not gonna be like aggressive and angry about it. For me, it just kind of makes me feel like I'm part of a neighborhood. And I remember like the first time I was visiting and I brought down my recycling and garbage, I was kind of like, maybe I live here, maybe I don't. And I was like, I don't. But at the time it felt kind of nice to put out recycling. Maybe that's just me and I'm a silly person. But that is something to keep in mind. So I hope you found this travel tip video helpful. I am going to be making many more videos, so please let me know in the comment section what you would find helpful. Like, what information would you like to know about Japan? And if you guys can thumb up those comments, then I can figure out which ones are the most important to you. If you've been to Japan and you've had similar or different experiences than me, please also let us know in the comment section. Sharing is caring. This community is excellent for this. And speaking of community, if you are new to this channel, welcome! I am Martina, aka King Kogi. I do lots of videos about Japan, including the Tokyo Tour series. We've just wrapped up season 1. Oh yeah, on to season 2. And I've also made digital travel guides for Japan. You can check out the link in the info box. It should help you with organizing and planning your trip to Japan. So I hope these tips have been helpful for you all, and good luck on planning your trip. I will see you in the next video. King Kogi out. How do people end these videos? I don't know. Fade out to the end screen.